Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of our windshield installation segment. So in part 1, we basically just installed the rubber trim, aluminum molding, and mocked up our windshield in the opening. At that point, I was just kind of showing you we had some gaps in the corners here, and those gaps ended up punishing us for literally 6 hours trying to figure out how to close those up. A real wrestling match, and it really didn't have to be that way. It took us about 5 hours wrestling with it, not having any success. After we took a break, finally figured out what we could do to correct the problems, we had the thing in literally in 1 hour, no problems. And so we're going to use the same techniques, the same kind of tooling on the back window. We'll be able to show you there on that one. There was a point I had to take the camera out of the inside of the car to safely install this without breaking the glass. So I'll try and explain my way through this step by step, exactly what you need to do to make this work out for you. You won't have any problems at all, and your corners are going to fit absolutely perfect. Probably the best place to start is let's take a look at all 4 corners and see what they should look like after they're all seated. So we're going to want to make sure our rubber is lipped over the body here, right in the corners, and this is a real tough spot right here. The trick to getting that seated is in the shape of this aluminum trim. So this has got to be exactly in the right position, the right bend, the right angle, the right everything in order to get that over there. If your rubber is not covering this, the problem is right here. And then our top left corner, so note how the profile of our aluminum trim is closely matched to this shape right here. Very, very close. And then looking at the right side, a little bit of glare in here, but you can see how tight this bend is here in relation to our body line. And then looking at the right side lower corner here, so you can see the contour here really closely matches the body contour here. So without this being exactly the correct shape and contour, you're never going to get this outside rubber to lip over the body. You won't have a problem with the inside lipping, but you will have a problem with the outside. Let's go in the shop. I'll show you the special tooling we came up with and the process we used to get that worked out. So the plastic tool set I'm using here is made by Titan. I've used this on some other applications on the car. It comes in really handy, and there seems to be enough shapes and sizes and configurations on these tools here to do pretty much anything you need on this car. So it's a 6-piece tool set. Part number is 11566. So from that set, there's 3 tools that work really handy for installing the front windshield and back window. This particular one here, I had to cut the end off. And the reason I cut that off is I'm making a tool where I can actually strike with a plastic hammer on this end and then drive this shape up underneath the aluminum molding. And that's what's going to drive it into the corner right there. That's actually going to help shape it and get it real tight into the corner. I use a plastic hammer to hit with, and that works pretty good. And then the next tool that's come in really handy, particularly on the front windshield, is this one here. It's got a nice feathered edge. So what's going to happen when you're pulling your cord, there's going to come a point in time where your cord actually pulls out of the seal before it lips over the body. And this type of tool right here is going to be able to get underneath the cord. It's going to get into the seal and help bring it back in the right position, and then you can start pulling your cord again. And then another tool that comes in handy is this paint can opener, and the reason that comes in handy, it's got this radiused lip on it, so you can get into that seal again. There's going to be places where this will fit in there nicely that a straight tool won't work, so this is a nice tool to help pull that cord through there. And the next tool that works really good is this one here. So I actually made this one. It's made from a cotter pin. I just cut one edge of the cotter pin off and then bent it to this nice shape here. Filed the edge so I don't have any sharp burrs on there. And what works with this is it's got a nice bullnose front edge, leading edge, so I can actually penetrate the seal, grab the back side of the seal. Let's say my cord has been pulled out. I can't get it back where it needs to be. I can pull that seal up over the body and get it where I need to have it with this tool. The cord is helpful in installing your front windshield, but you're going to need more than the cord to get that thing installed. This kind of a tool here works really good. I could actually install that front windshield ½ inch at a time using just this tool right here. And then looking at our cords here, so I've got 2 different ones. I got an 18 gauge red and an 18 gauge white. So my 18 gauge red, this is a little bit thicker and harder jacket cover on pulling this one. This one here, the white, a little bit softer, a little bit more flexible. So I think we're going to have better luck with that when we reinstall our back window. My theory was that if I split the cord in two, having to be able to pull from the top or the bottom, that it would be an advantage, but that proved out not to be any advantage at all. The best advantage I had was using this tool here. So I would just go with one cord. For your front windshield, you're going to want to start pulling from the top first. In your back window, you're going to want to start pulling from the bottom first. And probably the most important tool would be this glycerin here. This one worked really good. It's just so forgiving. It's forgiving on your paint. It's forgiving on the molding, your aluminum trim. This does everything you need to lubricate, settle everything into position, and shape it without creating any kind of damage. And gives you plenty of working time. Eventually, this will evaporate and dry out, and you'll have a real good rubber conditioner with this that won't leave any soapy residue. All right, so I think probably the best way to explain what's going on here in the forces against us is using this rubber band here as a demonstration. So let's say the rubber band is our seal, and we're going to fit it over the windshield or the back window. So what's happening is I pull the rubber band is wanting to go this direction. It's fighting against it. It's pulling it inwards. So your force is now being pulled inwards from the corners, this direction. Right? So we're slack in the middle, but we're tight in the corner. So already the forces of the seal are working against us coming inwards. So then the next problem we'll have to overcome will be the orientation of the seal onto the glass. So let's use this red mark here as the joint on our seal, and let's assume we're off to the right here or to the left here a little bit. What's going to happen then is your corners aren't going to be seated where they have to be. It's very difficult to tell just by looking at it if your seam is in the center of your windshield because it's so big and it's a complex shape. Also, the shape of our curvatures on our seal are so subtle, it's hard to tell if you're actually seated or not. So you could be on there and everything looks good, but you could actually be here in relationship to where it needs to be. So the process Dad and I came up with to overcome the orientation of the seal is we installed the seal onto the glass. We used glycerin on the outside of the seal, and on the inside of the lip, we ran the cord and went ahead and installed the seal with the glass into the opening without the aluminum trim seated into the seal. That's the important part right there. So if you put the aluminum trim in, there's no way you'll ever be able to shift rubber seal around the glass. If it needs to move, you won't be able to settle it in. So installing the seal onto the glass, into the opening, that would be the next step. So then looking at our rear glass here, so you can see Dad and I have already got this set up. So what we've done is we've put the rubber seal on, we've coated the outside with glycerin, we've left the metal spline out. So what we're doing a initial setting so that we can make sure and verify that the rubber seal is in the proper orientation to the glass. So if this needs to shift over this way or this way, we will know as soon as we get to the corners. The corners will show us in this state if we're close to where we need to be, or if we got a gap on one side and we're overlapping on the other side here. So it is possible, as long as we have glycerin on there, to shift this seal with the glass in location. However, at no point are we ever pushing on the glass, be it the inside or the outside. We're never pushing the glass, we're only just working the seal. We're pushing it, we're massaging it, we're doing whatever we gotta do to just get it to push, work, and wiggle its way around. And that'll work pretty good. So just looking at the corner a little bit closer here, you can see our contour here is really where we need to be without the spline. However, if I had the spline in here and tried to sit this in here, we wouldn't be anywhere close to being correct for that. So best way to do it, put your seal on the glass, then orientate your seal to the glass and to these corners. You're able to do that as long as that spline is not locked in there. Let's go inside, take a look at that spline, and I'll give you my theory on how they did it at the factory. So the first problem we're going to run into is out of the box. So out of the box, this is not going to be the correct shape or contour, whether this be from Porsche or even an aftermarket supplier. It's not going to be the correct shape to fit your glass. So that's going to be the first problem we're going to run into. So then how did Porsche get these installed on an assembly line? They're going to have to install these windows quickly, efficiently. They're not going to want to be wrestling with all this uneven trim business, orientation to seal to glass. So my guess is that at the factory, they would have had a jig that looks something like this to situate the rubber seal onto the glass first, so that before they even started working with the rubber seal, they already know that it's in the correct orientation. They had some kind of a jig to set that up first. So then the next thing they would have had some kind of a jig at the factory to pre-bend and pre-shape these aluminum trims to exactly the right contour. So coming right out of the jig, pressing it right into the molding, they would have been right on target every time. We don't have that luxury because we don't have that jig or the shape. We're just starting from scratch. We're kind of in the ballpark, but we've got to get to the correct shape that they had. We can really only do that by mocking up the window first. So looking at the same aluminum piece just sitting on our back window here, you can see already we're not anywhere close to being the right shape. See that there? So what I need to do, I need to bend this now to the shape of the rubber underneath it. And when I can get this piece of aluminum sitting in that groove in a real relaxed state, we'll then be able to install it into the car. So after about 30 minutes of just playing with it, bending it, and reshaping it, you can see now we're a lot better where we need to be, a lot closer. So you can see there's no way we're ever going to get there if we put that in there and try to pull the window in. It's just never going to bend around. This line will just absolutely stop us in our tracks. All right, so getting started here again this morning. Dad's on his way over. Let's take a look at a couple important things that we want to note before we pull this window out of here. This is a back window, and notice that the seam on the rubber, I've got a reference tape mark on the back window. Also, you can notice that the joint on our metal trim is offset to the seam on the rubber. That's going to be really important to not follow this particular pattern here. What's important is that the seam is exactly where it needs to be to seat the rubber into the body. So that's why that reference mark's there. I can pull the glass out. If the rubber shifts on the glass while we're moving it, we can get back to where we need to be, right? And then looking at our front windshield here, so one important thing to note is that we don't have the dashboard installed at this time, and it's possible to install the dashboards on early cars from 65 through 67. You can put the windshield in first and then install your dashboard. From 68 onwards, you'll need to install your dashboard before you install your windshield. So that's a real important thing to note there. So they had some dashboard changes that took place from 68 onwards that makes it impossible to remove your dashboard or install your dashboard without removing your windshield first. And then another thing to note, I'm not using any sealant right now between the glass and the rubber seal and the rubber seal in the body. I'm going to wait until I get through the summer months when everything heats up, kind of settles in. Got a lot of expansion and contraction going to take place. I can always peel the rubber back after that and slide my sealant in then. Also, another reason I'm holding off, if for any reason I need to pull this windshield out of here, if I run into some problems putting the dashboard in, for any reason whatsoever, I can still get the seal out and reuse it. Once I put that sealant in there and things dry up a little bit, I'm going to have to cut that seal to get this glass out of there. So while we're waiting on Dad, let's take a look at a couple of clips showing how to feed the cord into the rubber molding on the front windshield, and then also from the inside pulling the cord and see exactly what's involved. Now, if it only pulls over that lip just as easy, we'll be in good shape. Okay, using our plastic tool to get started here and just get lipped up over there. Seems to be working the best. Dad's got pressure on it, and I'm pulling from this direction. Let's go ahead. Right here. Okay, here we go. More on this side. Work it right there. All right, we're in. Okay. Moving on down. Get over there, staple. All right. Okay, it's going. All right, let me pull that up. Well, there he is. Hey, Dad, you ready to do this again?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, so our back window's all mocked up, ready to go here. We're just going to pull that aluminum trim off of there and then start peeling it out of the opening. We're just going to press the seal from the inside back over that lip and then push it out from the inside out. Okay, so we're just working off the existing glycerine in the groove already. No need to put any more in there. I know what you're thinking, why don't we just put that in after the window's installed? But you can't install the spline with the window in place. It has to be installed out of the car. All right, well, that took about 15 minutes to massage that in there. You can see now we're right on our mark. So we're in good shape. Let's go ahead and set her in. Okay, with no pressure applied by Dad, I can get my tool in there, grab the back side of that lip. You see how I just pull that over? Little by little. Okay, now let's press that down, driving the seal down into the groove. Now we can pull our cord. There we go. Putting pressure on this direction. I'm pulling the cord very slowly and pressing the seal onto the lip. Actually, right here, not much pressure is applied by Dad at all. I'm doing most of the work. He's just stopping it from backing out. All right, we're in. All right, let's take a look and see where we are to get started. So we've got the bottom inserted on the inside, maybe about 6 inches up on the pillars here. You can see the rubber needs to be folded over. So we're going to use our plastic tool to lip over that, get that caught up. And then once we're caught up, then we'll go ahead and start going up the pillars. So this is the direction we're coming from, the bottom upwards and then towards the center at the top. I'm going to have to put the camera down as I don't really have a good angle to mount this, but basically I'm going to be pushing inwards this direction as I'm pulling the cord. So pushing this way, pulling the cord. Dad's just applying slight pressure from the outside. What we're doing, we're actually driving the edge of the aluminum this direction. We're seated on the edge. We're not actually touching the glass. We're on the aluminum. So we're just tapping. It's very soft and it will go. And then very carefully, you may have to hit the inside edge to try and twist the aluminum this direction. If it's pulled up this direction, it'll pull away from your seal. So you want to get it this direction. The only way to do that is just gently tapping the edge. Also, a really stiff putty knife works very good to seat the corners, drive them in a little bit, and also create a gap in the middle here. We need to have a little bit of a separation between the two moldings. And then with a 2-foot ladder sitting in the engine compartment, I'm just standing on that, and then I'm able to lean on the back of the window there and just kind of massage that molding in place. Let's see how that works. All right, center trim piece and part number on that. So first let's take a look at our back window corners and see how they turned out. Here's our lower left, our top left corner, our lower right corner, and then our top right corner. And then looking at the inside of our back window, also I just set the deck back up in here just to kind of give you an idea how it finishes out. And then our front. And our windshield wipers mocked up. So on this car, right-hand park and silver finish would be correct for 67. And this is kind of a cool option here. So some of your glass suppliers will offer a Sigla logo option to be etched into your glass. And then the back window logo option. All right, guys, there you go. There's the back window installed. Dad, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Good job, well done.
So there's basically the short version of installing your front windshield and back window. Could have easily made this a 2-hour video with all the things you're going to encounter working through this. So hopefully there's enough tooling in there. You can see how the tools are used, the techniques we use to get them in here, and get your corners all worked out. So the best way to acquire this glass is to actually go there in person, go to your supplier, look at the inventory, see what they have, and hand select it out. If at all possible, you can do it, you should do it. I've had problems before where I've ordered glass. It's extremely expensive to ship because of the fragileness of it, the size of it. If you get your glass in and there's an issue, whether it be a lamination bubble or a scratch in there, you may have to return the glass. Return shipping could be on you. So if at all possible, you definitely want to go to the supplier and hand select your pieces out. Dad and I went to Sierra Madre. Ian took care of us there. We selected through quite a few pieces to find the back window and the front window that would work for us, and then safely drove it back from California. Well, there you go, guys. Hopefully this will work for you. Good luck with your installations, and we'll see you on the next video.